Greetings of peace, everyone. This is Bassem Shaban, Director of the Peace Institute, once again with you with another episode of Faith and Society. And we are, as always, visited with our guest speakers, Pastor Stanley Murray and Imam Muhammad Musri, representing the Christian and Muslim community, respectively. So here we are in another episode dealing with, unfortunately, another major issue in our society, which is today we're going to be discussing human trafficking. And a lot of experts actually call it human trafficking, but there's a lot of critics that say it's pretty much modern day slavery in many different facets related to immigration, slavery or abuses, sex trafficking, child trafficking. So there's many different facets of this. And we want to start by sharing with you some statistics about and some resources that you can look at to really give you a sense of how bad the issue is. So here, this is our first website, which is from polarisproject.org. It's a nonprofit that actually tracks human trafficking all over the world, not only in the United States. And we can see here the statistics that show about 25 million people worldwide are considered, trafficked under human standards. As we said, in many different facets, from typical jobs that they might be part of, but they're not getting paid their adequate labor benefits and compensation, to commercial sex trafficking, child trafficking, violent crimes, and so on and so forth. So this is a great website to go through to not only hear about the current situation, but to also hear from survivors themselves, and also to go through human trafficking training that gives you indicators of what to see in society, in everyday life, that can be considered a person who is being trafficked. Another website we want to introduce you to is from the US government with the Department of Justice. They have an office for victims of crime, and they focus a lot on human trafficking. There's a plethora of information here for people. There's a campaign they focus on called Know the Faces of Human Trafficking, because it's all about perception. A lot of us think human trafficking is with people with chains on them and walking around or stuck in a dungeon somewhere. But unfortunately, it's also everyday people that you encounter that you might not even realize they are being abused or trafficked or enslaved by either a group or another person. So it's really important to be well informed about these things, just like we've been talking about many different issues across society. So with that, we want to come back to our speakers and really discuss from a religious perspective what they feel is the problem, its root, as well as possible solutions that we'll discuss at the very end, so we can really reflect a sense of action and service to really challenge this pandemic. So with that, Pastor Murray, it's all yours.
Thank you. Once again, I'm excited to be here with you and my good friend, Imam Muhammad. And of course, this being Human Trafficking Prevention Month that we're talking about. So it's just a timeline of just us coming together as a community, and there's still so much we have to do together. There's so many various ideas we could come up with individually, but I think collectively is still going to be the key of us taking the role within our own houses of worship as well. We do know that human traffickers will also allow those who are being oppressed to go to church or to go whatever place they may go as like an incentive, which is kind of hard to believe, but they have found people that have been able to do that. And so, the Bible goes all the way back into many years of slavery being handled. Most people know about the people of the Israelites in Egypt, Hagar, who was a slave under Sarah and Abraham. I mean, the Bible is full of those instances where people were brought in. But we're not talking about people who may have made the decision to come and work for someone. We're not talking about indentured servants or anything like that. We're talking about people who have been told that they cannot get out by fear or by force. They've told them, if you leave, we're going to do something to your family, so they stay. Or they tell them that you come in and you owe money and you pay a certain amount, and they say, well, that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you really owe, and then you just never ever get out of that hold of owing, and so you're considered stuck, and you can't be released from that type of oppression. And so, when you're taking young men and young girls and utilizing them for sexual acts that at their age they should not even be exposed to, let alone be involved in, it hurts me to my soul to hear and know that it does exist, and to just hear the statistic you just gave. That's what's reported. When we stop and think about it, and I tell people, when you look at a statistic, you can multiply it easily by 3 or 5 of not being reported. And so that's a lot of people in this world who are without faith, without hope, without a belief that they're ever going to get out of that. And if you ever have the chance to talk with someone who's been through that kind of situation, it's heartbreaking. And we in America, sometimes I think we are not as grateful as we should be, and we don't realize what others go through traumatically a lot more than we do. So I think as a culture, especially in the Christian realm, we should take this role very seriously. We should find the avenues and connect with those resources that are out there. You don't necessarily have to start your own plight. You can find what's working and find out how you can help to get involved in those situations.
So, Imam?
Indeed, the problem is historically very old, and as old as humanity is, people have managed to find ways to enslave other people directly or indirectly. And unfortunately today, even though slavery is outlawed almost worldwide, but the numbers are staggering. I agree with my friend the pastor that the number of 25 million is below estimate. The real number is much bigger than that. And because you don't know what you don't know, the people who are kidnapped, who are enslaved, they're not able to report that. If they were able to report that they are in that situation, that will be half the way to get their freedom. Modern day slavery, the ways that are used are sophisticated, and they are often hidden right within sight, all around us. People, as the pastor said, are too afraid to report it, to tell their church members or their, people around them that this is what I'm going through. And the role of the people of faith is not just to, as we say, worship God with words, but we have to worship God with actions by showing love and compassion and care for those who are going through difficulties. And often these things begin by people going through a challenge, like a young woman in her teens, running away from an abusive home, and she runs into the arms of a pimp or a person who would, promise her better life, but quickly turn around and turn her into a sex slave. And this is happening a lot. And after these young girls and young boys discover that they ran from that small fire to a bigger fire, they're trapped. They're not able to even speak about it or, reach for help. So law enforcement depends on good citizens out there to keep their eyes and ears open and to help identify such victims, to give them the help they need to free them from the heartless individuals and gangs and groups that control these people, young people. Today, the internet plays significant role in connecting, uh, predators with victims. A lot of people who are roaming the social media are predators looking for innocent victims, young victims who don't understand that the avatar and the information listed in the social media is not true. And they think they're talking to, say, a girl who is 13, 14, thinks she's talking to another girl who's 13, 14, not to a 40, 50-year-old man who is a sexual predator. And young people are very unsuspecting. They give their information, their real information, their real name, their real address, their real, uh, date of birth, and so on, to these predators that come after them. So we in the faith community have to do a lot of education about the topic, have to do a lot of awareness to the young people, uh, and bring this knowledge that's absolutely necessary for young people to understand the dangers that are out there and be active, be actionable, and not just, thinking that if we pray for them, nothing's going to happen. Uh, so going back to what the Prophet Muhammad spoke about in terms of, uh, you can worship God in the mosque, but you can, if you free a slave, take a person out of their debt or take a person out of, the control of uh, a master, you, with that could be your ticket to heaven. And that would be much better than years of worship, because God doesn't need our real worship. He wants to see us helping those who need help. That is a far greater and more honorable expression of faith.
So,
And
Pastor, back to you. Go ahead.
I'd like to piggyback on what Imam is saying and what God is really getting us to realize, whether it be the Quran or the Bible, that it's not about you, but it is about you. It's not so much about what you receive, what you get, what you gather, what you collect, but it's about what you do for your fellow man. And that is what moves God more than anything else, is when you can get a person to do something they normally would not do, to be a blessing to someone else, without a motive, just from the kindness of their heart. And, there are indicators, and I want to challenge people, please go visit some of these sites that Brother Bassem has put out and listen to the stories from the actual people who were there, who were involved, who were the victims, rather than hearsay, and hear what they had to go through and how they're now able to sit and still want to help somebody else. They could say, I've been through so much, I don't have to help anybody. But they're giving their stories because I truly believe they believe they're going to help someone else, who could easily fall victim to these situations. Learn some of the signs that may be indicating a person could be a part of a victim human trafficking process. Learn what you can do to help that person, or make the calls and make the necessary communication needed We just can't keep ignoring what's going on in the world. I mean, you can, if you want to ignore that there's a shortage of food, okay, pretty soon you're going to realize there's a shortage of food. If you want to ignore that the world is, can we be transparent, falling apart, one day you're going to come out and you're going to realize that the world is falling apart. And if you say that you've heard that there's human trafficking going on, well, it could be a family or a friend that winds up missing next week. It's just that easy to, so don't wait until quote unquote the dog standing in your yard for you to take attention to it. We as believers have to start getting involved in the things of the world without becoming a part of it. All right, we're different. We're not better than others, but we are different than others because we have a higher power belief that our world was not made by us and it's not maintained by us. We are just vessels along this journey called life.
Yeah, in Islam, in the Quran, many people, when reading the Quran, they see that God speaks about the actions of freeing slaves as a form of repentance or a form of, you know, expression of guilt. Like if you promise to do something and you swore to do it and you renege, then you have to compensate for that in Islam. And it says you should free a slave. And you say, but there are no slaves. Some people tell me, oh, there are no slaves today, so this ruling is no longer applicable. I said, as long as there are human beings, there will be somebody enslaving somebody. And what God is trying to wake you up and tell you, realize this reality that somebody is taking advantage of somebody, enslaving them in one way or another. And it is your job, since you made this mistake, to, in order to compensate for it, you have to go out and help someone, free them from the predicament they are in. It might be that, you know, through financial help, you get them out of that debt and then they are free on their way. And sometimes it is actually, you know, they are enslaved by drugs, enslaved by, you know, a sexual predator. So forget that the official slavery is, you know, over, but now there are these new forms, and as a way of showing God that you are sincere and you care about other human beings, as the pastor said, you have to go out and help these types of cases. Now, I'm not turn, you know, a blind eye and say there are no people, because these people are crying and they're dying in secret, and they are wondering if there's any hope, if there's anyone hearing their cries. And God, who hears their cries and knows their anguish, is trying to tell people of faith, go look for them, find them, help them. And before, like the pastor said, it happens to you, before your own son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter, you know, one day feel like, you know, mom, dad, they're not understanding me, I have to run away. You know how many young people run away in this country and around the world because they can't see eye to eye with their parents, because their parents sometimes are very firm with them. And then these people fall victims. If you open your heart for them and your home for them and say, I will take you, and you could protect them from being on the street, protect them from being exposed to criminals and gangs and drug dealers. But many of us feel like, no, it's not my problem. You know, this man is my friend, and I'm not going to, you know, where is your faith? Where is your heart? Because that's where your help can make a difference between life and death. Every time I hear about a young girl that is missing, I see posters, my heart sinks and feel like this could have been my daughter. And uh, what happened is later they find the body of that person. And I say, as long as these incidents are happening, we're not doing our job. As people of faith, we should go out and make sure that we're extending the help they need in order to prevent it. If we look at the immigration issue, on our borders, yes, ideally we would love everybody to come through the door, wait in line, get their visa to come in, but we have to understand also the reality when in our neighbors in the south are going through too much in Venezuela or other places, and people come to our door, we should at least save them from being victims. Just to tell them, go into these areas that are very, very dangerous on the southern border and let them be victims to gangs, when we can, probably find them a shelter next to the border where they are safe. Um, I believe, and the pastor probably can speak more to that, where God said, I was like lost and you found me. I was hungry and you fed me. And God is looking for us, how we're going to treat these people in their moment of need, in their time of need, because something could happen to us tomorrow and we would be in that predicament.
And the chances are more higher than it's ever been before. The local rate of children going missing, runaway, however they title it, any child, though they might have left on their own, is still missing to me. Even if they might title it as a runaway, they have no desire to know where they're going. They don't have any direction. They don't have any life skills. To me, they're still missing. And so let us as believers of our faith continue to wake up every morning with a purpose, that if something is brought our way, that we're observant, that we watch, we make the call. If we're wrong, so what? But I would rather you have made the call and be wrong than not made the call. Sit down in your room 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and that picture of that very person you saw comes up on the news saying, we want to report a missing child. And you go, oh my God, I saw her at Walmart. She was with this guy. He looked kind of hanky. I didn't know what was going on. And let me just help you with human traffickers. That they're not just men. They're women too. Okay.
Yeah, we just went through this trial, with the assistant to Epstein.
Yeah. So, and it's not just your average pimp on the corner. A lot of these people are wealthy. That's what we're finding out, because you got to figure out who can access that many people getting across state lines, country lines, flying from country. You got to have somebody's got to be wealthy and have an inside bag to what's going on. Somebody's being paid off to do something. Every time you see a child found in another place, somebody turned a blind eye for that to happen. It wasn't just a clear cut, someone missed it. Someone said, I'm not going to see what I'm seeing, and for that child to wind up in another place. And so I want us to just start taking our lives that much more seriously, that we take hold to the Bible of saying, not in some, not in most, but in all things, that it be done decently in order. And so the decency of being a human being, whether they be Muslim, Jew, Catholic, Christian, it doesn't matter to me, that they are human beings. I plead to you all today, please go and learn more about human trafficking other than what you see on a commercial. That's good, but that's what they are. They're infomercials to you to go to other information. Please take the time to research for yourself. Start some kind of a format within your house of worship. Get with your leader, say, hey, I'd like to take an initiative to create something. A lot of stuff is found in October during Domestic Violence Month. They're finding out that a lot of these domestic violence situations, the person is not who we thought they were. So we owe it to God and to our country and to ourselves and to one another to stand together in this time and season.
I think faith leaders of all kinds should have very clear message that any victim out there, they can come, they can tell us, we will assist them. We are here for them, and not shy away and say, I really don't want to get into these kinds of, complicated situations. Well, if it's not us, who? If we don't show God's compassion, who is going to? And as the Bible says, as the Quran says, if you save a life, it's like saving all of humanity. And saving a life could be as simple as making a phone call, reporting a situation, and let the professional officers look at it and say, no, we checked this out, it's fine. But in many situations, that makes the difference between a child going home back to their family or ending up a statistic.
Well, once again, thank you for a great conversation and insight into a very big problem in the community. And it's very important that, as both of you said, for all of us to do something. And I'll leave with one quote by Margaret Mead, who was a great cultural anthropologist in the 70s, who once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever does." So I think that resonates in all the issues that we're dealing with from time to time. So thank you very much for your wisdom and guidance once again. And our viewers, thank you for your attendance. And we look forward to seeing you and connecting with you in more issues as the year goes by. And like the pastor and the imam mentioned, it's important to be well informed about these issues. So make sure to go through these resources that we introduced to you earlier in the episode and get educated and informed, and maybe that will lead you to save somebody's life. So thank you for your attention, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Have faith and have a great day.